have Ina Masten here to discuss with us who's in your corner, building a board of advisors before you need one. This was all made possible by the connections we found on Alignable and the strong network that followed. Through this network, we collaborated with people who also value the client relationship like we do. Today's presentation will be about 30 minutes long, and then the rest of the hour, or however long we have here, will be a Q&A with Ina. So as you're watching along, feel free to jot down any questions you may have, because this webinar is for you and anybody who is going to be watching this recording, and we want to make sure that you get your questions answered. Just a little housekeeping, that there is the free handout that goes with the webinar, and then let's see, so this webinar is also being live streamed on LinkedIn and Facebook. And so if you don't want to be recorded, that's okay. The chat is your friend. I will be keeping an eye on the chat and raise any questions or comments you may have. Similarly, if you have any technical issues during the call, feel free to message me and I will support you there. That way Ina can go ahead and continue on with the presentation. And that's it. Go ahead and take it away, Ina.
Great. Okay. So as Audrey said, we're going to be talking about building a board of advisors before you need one. And that's the key to remember, before you need one, right? So let's see here. Okay. So what we're going to work through today is 6 parts. Why it matters, what you're trying to build, picking the right people. This is super important. The ask and the offer, running the cadence, like how often, that kind of thing, Q&A, and your short list. So why this matters now, what a board advisor is and isn't, and then the gap it actually fits. And then why you're trying to build it, okay? There's different kinds of advisors, different kinds of board members, picking the right people. They're not necessarily your friend, and we'll talk about that. The ask and the offer, how you actually approach somebody. Again, running the cadence, like, how often and how you want them to be involved, whether it's like quarterly or is it monthly. And then we'll have a time for Q&A and your short list. So a board is infrastructure. So it's built before the storm, unless it's useless during it, because when the storm happens, usually it's a cash flow issue, growth, all those kinds of things happening all at the same time. You don't have time to build a proper board. So what it's not is a fiduciary board. What it's not investors. It's not your friends. And it's not a coach. So it's not a status symbol you list on a website and you never actually use. What it is, though, is a small group of trusted outsiders who've already done the things that you're about to do. They have experience and who you've earned the right to call when the decision is hard. So just 3 to 5 people used regularly and replaced when needed. So the 4 archetypes, you need a mix. So most founders accidentally collect 3 of the same. The gaps are where the worst decisions happen. So you want someone that's the operators, that's 5 years ahead of you in their business. They've run a business that's about your side, made it bigger. They bring the pattern recognition, not the theory. The first call when you know what good looks like, when you don't know what good looks like. The domain expert, someone that's deep in your industry. They know your market. They know your customers, your competitors better than you do because they've been there. Useful for strategic bets, dangerous to overtrust on a personal call. So you want to go operator first. The function specialist, filling your weakest seat. So that'd be like sales, finance, product, ops, HR, whichever discipline you're least confident in, reads your numbers or your funnel and tells you what you're missing. And then there's the wise outsider. That's a distance from your bubble. They're in a completely different industry. They're a different generation, different life. The one that asks the questions your inner circle has stopped asking. So the board you build in calm, you can use in crisis. So 18 months in is the typical time that you want to build trust with an advisor before the relationship is worth a hard conversation. So that takes a little bit of time. So you want to start to do it as soon as possible. So 3 times how much more useful an existing advisor is than a new one in the moment of genuine crisis, because they already know you. You've already developed that relationship. And so they're that much more valuable. And then 1 hour, the actual monthly cost of a working advisor relationship, not equity, Not money necessarily, just time. Can they give you an hour a month? So who do you want and who to politely decline? That's an awkward one. The wrong advisor is worse than no advisor. They consume the seat someone better could fill. So you want someone that has done what you're trying to do recently enough that it still applies, right? Tells you what you don't want to hear in a way you can hear it. Answers a thoughtful email within a week, reliably, really gets back to you, asks better questions than they give answers, and has skin in something, career, reputation, money that aligns with you. So the people that you want to politely decline are someone that's your competitor, your investor, your customer, someone who mostly enjoys the sound of their own advice. And we all know those people. And is too busy now and probably will stay too busy, right? Because they don't have the time to give you when you need it. They have the time to give it when they have the time, but not when you need it. Has strong opinions about a business they've never run and wants the title for their LinkedIn and not much else. And that's very true. So, how do you invite? What to actually offer? So, most advisor relationships fail at the start, not in year three. Opening conversation does most of the work. So, the ask is you want to be starting small, being specific. So, like, don't propose marriage on the first call. So, you would say, I'd love to buy you coffee and ask three specific questions. So, no commitment. I just want to know if it's useful for both of us. If it works, I'd like to do this once a quarter. If not, no harm done. So the offer would be most advisors want three things. Equity is rarely one of them. Interesting problems, real questions, real stakes, not flattery. Genuine engagement. They actually do what they suggest, right? They walk the talk or tell them why not. Equity sometimes is like, less than a percent, sometimes up to 5% for serious commitment. Money for one-off work. Most won't ask for this though. So how to run it so it doesn't quietly die, you're bored, right? So 90% of advisor relationships, and because nobody ran them, just kind of disappear. So how to run yours on a one-to-one monthly standing 45-minute meeting, a standing call per advisor. So that's each person, right? Not together, that's each person. Two questions you genuinely don't want to know the answer to. Why it works. They get tangible value. You get a real conversation, not a polite one. So this is where you're really getting to know each other, getting to understand how you communicate and your life experience. Then there's a written update. It's usually monthly, one page, and it talks about what's working, what isn't, what you're deciding, sent the day before each call, and read in 3 minutes. Okay, so it's got to be a quick read, one page, big font, right? Why it works, that way they arrive informed. So you don't burn the call on context. They already know what it is that you're going to be asking. They've already started thinking about how they could help you or where they can make a difference for you. And then three is a group dinner. That's where you get everybody together. And that's annual. Once a year is fine, just 3 hours. It's a time to celebrate. So get them all together in a room once a year. You want to watch them interface, and sometimes they disagree. So it can teach you more than any one of them alone. Why it works? Because they become a network, not just a list of contacts. So then you want to make sure you have an annual review, right? Okay, that's just once an honest conversation. Is this still useful for both of us? Is this working for both you and for the board member? Renew, recalibrate, or graciously end. Sometimes people just stay for a year because that's all the commitment they have. They have other things that they need to do, but others really want to stay in for the long haul. So why it works, that way no one stays out of guilt and seats stay alive. So you're allowing people to gracefully step outside if they'd like to, and you're allowing people that really could be valuable members come in. So 4 ways a board quietly fails and the fix. So watch for these. They almost always look like minor scheduling issues until they aren't. So the failure mode, the fan club. Everyone agrees with you. The calls feel great. Nothing gets harder. The fix, add one person whose default is disagreement. Calibrate for friction, not warmth. Remember, these are people who are supposed to be helping you with your business, not being your new best friend. The failure mode, the echo of last year. Advisor expertise from 5 years ago doesn't always fit what you're doing now. So the fix, an annual review. Graduate them carefully. The business changes, the board changes with it. The ghost roster, names on a page, calls happen once, then drift. You stop sending updates. The fix, cancel formally, either re-engage in writing or release the seat. Empty is better than a fake seat. And then the free therapists, you only call when you're upset. They stop hearing strategy and start hearing just your complaints. So the fix to that is bring real decisions, not feelings. Use a coach for the feelings. That's a different relationship. So 5 things I want you to decide before we leave here. Not a discussion list, it's a decision list. So you want to take these 5 different things and write an answer next to each. Which 2 archetypes are the biggest gaps in your current network, right? 3 specific names you want to approach in the next 30 days. And what's the standing offer? Call of coffee, dollar amount, equity range. Who in the room owns each conversation and what's the deadline? And when do we sit down together again to review who said yes? So build the board in good weather. The hard year is coming. It always is. When it lands, you want the bench to already be warm. So this week, write down 3 names, send the first email by Friday, coffee, no commitment.
Today.
And that's it.
All right, this is where we can get into the Q&A portion. So we did have a question on LinkedIn by Dave Warden, and he agreed that the timing piece is what most business owners get wrong. And so he goes into a little bit of a description, but the advisors worth having are usually the ones you've had real conversations with for months before there's any formal arrangement. Dave's question was, what's the right cadence for keeping those relationships warm before you actually need them to show up and weigh in?
So that would really be what we discussed, having that coffee call, having that Zoom call, meeting for coffee, that kind of thing, and just to discuss, kind of where things are at, where you're going, what's happening in their world, what's their background, what are their goals and objectives to make sure that everything is in alliance together. And this is something that, you don't just meet once. You want to meet a couple of times before you actually ask them to be on your board. And remember, they're not always on your board for life. You're not board members for life. You're only there for, a given period of time. Some people stay on longer than others, but it just depends where your business is, what the needs are at the time, who you need. And, you will find that there are people that will be more of a mentor or that have experience and been through what you've been through. But once you get to that, then maybe you need somebody that's had the experience in the next phase of growth in your business.
We did